Yo, what's up, bro? In this video I'm going to be continuing our last video, the video on which I'm trying to make a magic game on Roblox. And as you may have already known or may not, depending if you watched the past video or not, this game is going to be called Wizard Showdown, and it's going to be a magic game where players are going to be in a platform and they're going to be trying to destroy each other, or you know, get the opposing team off the platform, meaning falling to the water. And if you didn't watch the previous video, then just go ahead and watch it. I'm going to put that in a card. Also, this is the second time I'm recording this because guess what? When I was already 1 hour into recording previously, OBS decided that it was a good idea not to shut itself down, and so I lost the file. So I'm gonna have to be doing this again, and I already made everything like 1 hour ago, so I'm gonna try to explain what I made so far in the previous recording with words as best as I can. And OBS, you are a big... I'm playing, bro. Anyways, yeah, so let's get it. So first thing I made were some animations for the actual casting and also the stance animation. If we go ahead and check Mon Animator or any, you know, animation thing that you use to animate, then you're gonna see that I have two animations. This is the spell casting animation and this is the stance animation, and the player are going to move with this animation on. And if you check this animation, then you're gonna see that I didn't animate the legs, and that is because I want the legs to actually be moving as they're walking. That's what you want to do when you're creating weapons. You want to create a stance animation when they have the weapon out, and don't animate the legs if you want the legs to be moving when they're walking. So yeah, the legs will be moving and this animation stance will be playing. And then the second animation I made was just this stance animation. And the idea for this animation, as you can see, it has 40 frames, right? The idea for this animation is for the actual projectile or the spell to actually cast itself when it's on the 20th frame, because that's when it should play, right? I think the animation is not all that bad, if I'm being completely honest. Okay, so also you might be wondering, how did I get the wand rigged to the character? And I'm going to address that right now. So inside the right arm, you have something called Motor 6D. You can insert a Motor 6D by searching here and just type in Motor 6D. And once you type that, you're gonna put that inside the right arm or wherever you want it to be. And then you're going to set, forget about this, I'm going to explain this in a moment. Just pay attention to part 1 and part 0. Part 0 is always going to be the part you wanted rigged to, and part 1 is going to be the part that you want to be rigged to part 0. And so the part that we want to rig to part 0, meaning the right arm, is the wand. It says handle here, but that's because inside the wand model there's something called handle, which is the actual thing that's going to be animated. Because like models cannot be animated, you can animate parts, right? And this is not a part, this is a mesh, right? But it also serves kind of like a part here. And also once you do that, then you will have these two things over here, which are like the C frame in relation to the part 0. So essentially, if I were to make this equal to 0, right, you're gonna see that this is set to the actual center of the right arm. This is what's gonna happen when you set the part 0 on the part 1. You're gonna get the wand or whatever weapon at the very center of the arm or whatever you want to rig it to. And if you want it to be like in a specific position, then you're gonna mess around with these two values. C1 stands for C frame, by the way. C frame 1 or Z frame of part 1, then you have to modify the position and the orientation until you get what you want, and this is the values that I wanted. And also another important thing that you have to take into account when you're rigging weapons or armor or anything is that you might want to have this thing right here, which is a C frame value. You can add a C frame value by just, you know, searching it in the thing that you use to watch stuff. And I renamed it to Z1, and as you might have noticed, it's the same name as this property right here, and that's because this is what the script is going to use to pretty much assign to the property C1 automatically, so I don't have to do it through a script. Because if you try to do it through a script, then if you don't know what you used in the Motor 6D, for example, if I destroy this Motor 6D and I don't remember, then I will have to start trying to guess what was the things that I used for the C1 property in the Motor 6D. But if you store that inside the handle, then you're always going to have that, and you can just make the script set the C1 property of the Motor 6D equal to the C1 value or the C frame value that you just have here with the properties that you wanted to have on the C1 value. Hopefully that made sense. Also, I have a string value here, and it's called name because the point of this string value is just to store the name of the wand. This is the default wand, meaning the one that every player is going to get once they join the game, so I just named it default. and then this one is supposed to go here in replicated storage, and I'm going to explain now what that is. I know I'm going a little bit too fast, but the thing is we have a lot of things to cover. We barely covered animations, and I also have to cover like the script, and then we have to start making the VFX. So put this inside server storage, and now I'm going to start explaining what we have here in replicated storage. So if you take a look here at replicated storage, we have replicated storage, we have an animations folder, and we also have a ones folder. So in the animations folder we have two other folders, which is the general folder and the spells folder. So the spells folder are going to contain animations used for spell casting and spells, and therefore if you open the folder, then you have the default casting animation, which is the animation I showed you before. And in general we have the animations that everyone will have regardless of if they're casting or not. And the first animation that everyone can have is the default stance. And the reason why I didn't name the actual animation instance default stance as well is because in the script you want to have a way to find the stance animation once the match is over for each and every single player, so that you can stop playing it, right? And if I were to name every single stance animation, because you might want to have different stances in the future, I don't know, but you have to think about those things early on, right? And the reason why I didn't do that is because it's easier for the script to loop through the playing animations of every single character and find any animation called stance animation than me having to add manually every single animation named, and if it found any of those names, then just stop it. It's just easier for the script to find this single name inside the playing animations. And if you didn't know, the animations that are playing inside the character are stored inside the humanoid. So you can use that to get all the playing animation tracks and then just check if this animation is playing, and then you can just stop it. And then we have here something called ones, and it's kind of like the same things. We have different ones, and the actual name of the one is going to be the name of the folder, and then the one itself is going to be called wand. But in the handle we're going to have this thing called name right here. Actually, we should put that outside. Yeah, we should put that outside. Here we're going to have something called name, which is going to have the name of the actual wand. Yes, you can see this one's named default, and it's inside the default folder, so that means we are good. And then in terms of the script, actually I might just have to show you the result of the script before I actually explain it, so you know what's happening. So if I go ahead and test this, okay, so as you can see, we're now in the match and we have our wand in hand, and we also have the stance animation, and we can walk and everything. Same with the other player. And now I just gotta make it so that I can actually, use spells. And the thing is, I haven't made that yet, but I'll explain now what I did to add the wand into the hand of the player at the start of the match, and also what I did to remove it at the end of the match. Because if we wait here a little bit, then you will see that it's going to remove the wands from every single one of the players. And also another thing I want to talk about is that I don't know if this game should be like 5 versus 5 or 3 versus 3. So let me know what you think in the comment, bro, because like I have really no idea. Like I haven't made any similar games to this one before, but I think 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5 tops is going to be like the gameplay. And as you can see, it removed the wand from the hand of everything. Bro, I can't speak. It removed the hand from every single player, right? And now I'm going to explain to you how I did that. So let's close everything. Everything's closed. Yeah, everything's closed. No, not yet. Annoying. Okay, there you go. Now everything should be closed, right? Yo, why isn't this closing? Okay, now we're good. So I went to the matchmaking script, and the first thing I did was add these variables over here. So this is the replicated storage, right? The animations folder, which is this folder over here. Hold on, this folder over here. Then the general animations folder inside the animations folder, and then the spell animations folder. I added that into the variables, and I also added the ones folder, which is this one over here, right? And I also have the spells animations folder. So where the actual changes or the important changes start is over here. So I added the humanoid here. I made it so that the next thing only plays if the humanoid is found. And you might be wondering, what is this? So this is the loop that I have that pretty much spawns every single player into the match. So if it finds the humanoid root part and the humanoid, then it's going to reposition the player into the match, and then it's going to find the corresponding one for the player. And the reason why I named it corresponding one is because in the future you might want to have different ones that the player might want to have, and you might have to identify which is the one that the player has equipped. But for testing purposes, we only have one for now, so I just added the only one that we have, which is this one right here, right? The default one. And then I found the handle inside the one, and then I also found the C1V value inside the handle, which is what we're going to use to position the wand in the player's arm once we have added the motor 6D. And then I set the pairing of the corresponding one, because remember we cloned it, and when you clone something it doesn't really have a parent, so the parent is going to be the character. And then I found the right arm inside the character because that's where the one is going to be at, right? So then I said, if you find the right arm and you also find this C1 value right here, then you're going to create a motor 6D. So I used this to create a motor 6D, and I set it inside the right arm. So if you put a comma after you create an instance, it automatically sets that instance that you created to whatever you put after the comma, or the second argument, however you want to call it. And then I set the part 0 property to the right arm because that's the part that we want the one to be rigged to. And then in part 1 I have the handle, which is like the actual one, right? And then here we have the C1 property, which is what I told you that we have to modify to put the one where we want it for the animations and everything, which is like in the bottom of the right hand, right? So this C1 value, remember, it has like the actual positioning of the wand, and you set the C1 property of the motor 6D to that, so it actually gets to where you want it to be. And then you have the stance animation, which is the animation that plays, you know, when you're inside the match automatically. And I got the corresponding stance animation, same thing as before. You might have different stances, that's why I named it corresponding stance animation. But as well, for testing purposes, we just have one, so I just got the one stance animation that we have right now. And this is something that you have to like think in advance, because if you build all your systems, then it might get a little bit confusing to add those modifications later if you didn't think about them from the beginning, because the way your game is going to be organized is going to be a little bit more tailored to what you were going for in the beginning. And you know, reorganizing your whole game is going to obviously affect your script, so you got to think about these things when you're starting. And then you have the corresponding stance track, which is just the track of the animation that we got before, and it loads it into the humanoid, and then it just plays it. And that's how you play and give the one to the player when they start the match. And then when the match ends, if you want to remove it, we go down here, and this is the section that returns the players that are still in the match to the lobby. So after it repositions the players to the lobby and it eliminates like the team tag that they have, then it's going to search in the humanoid for the track called stance animation. I'm going to explain what this is right now. If you didn't know, that humanoid has this thing, or this I think this is an event, right, that you can actually call. Or actually, I think this is an integrated function, I believe, and you can pretty much get all the animations that are playing in the humanoid, or that character is playing. And because as I told before, all the animations are played and are stored inside the humanoid, and you get all the animation tracks that are playing inside the humanoid, and it puts them into a table, and you can loop through it, obviously using a 4 in pairs or I pairs loop. And once you do that, then I just made it so if the name of the actual animation is stance animation, well, not animation, this is more like an animation track, but you get what I'm saying, right? Then if the name is equal to stance animation, then it's going to stop playing that animation. I remember, then even though it's inside, even though the animation is the default stance, the actual animation itself, it will always be called stance animation, so it can find it over here. And what I said before is that if I were to call all the different stances by their actual names, for example, if I were to call like the default stance, I don't know, like default stance, and then I have another stance called like stance 2 or whatever, I have to go like if in a name equals to default stance, oh my bad, default stance, and then I would have to go also like or, and then I have to write the other name that I want equals to like stance 2, and then every single stance that you have, you will have to put it over here. But if you have just one single name for all of them, then it will be easier for the script to find it. So hopefully that made sense. I know I'm rushing a little bit, but I'm just trying to give you a rough idea of what I did. And then you have to destroy the wand once the players are back in the lobby, because you don't want the players to have their wands in their hand in the lobby, or at least I don't want that. So the one model, this is what we cloned earlier, right? And that is going to be inside the character. This thing right here that I'm highlighting is going to be cloned, and it's going to be put inside the character. So I just said character find first child wand, and if you found that wand, then destroy it. And now you know what I did for the script. Whew, that was a lot to cover. So now we can actually start making the spell. And there are a couple of things that we actually need to do before we actually start making the spell, but I can tell you this much. So in replicated storage, the first thing we're going to do, right, is we're going to create another script. Not script, another folder, my bad. Another folder, and you're going to name that folder VFX. And here we're going to store the VFX that we're going to use for pretty much everything in the game, right? And then you're going to create another folder, and you're going to name it modules. And then inside this folder, you're going to add a module script, and you're going to name it spells. There you go. And pretty much inside this module script, we will store, or we'll create every single function for every single spell, or at least the majority of them, right? And inside this VFX, we will have every single VFX that we need. So the first thing we gotta do now is actually make the UI, because we need to have a way for the players to know what are the spells that they actually have, right? And I'm gonna make it the following way. There are going to be 5 or 4 spells that you're gonna be able to have at the same time. You won't be able to have more than 5 spells per match. And essentially I just need a hotbar, right? So I'm gonna go and try to find a hotbar or create one, and I'll just speed this part up, I guess. Okay, I think I'm done with the hotbar UI, and I know it looks insanely mid, but I'm not very good at UI design, I'll admit that. Listen, I code stuff, okay? I don't make UI, I only code stuff. But this will have to do for now, and now that we have a hotbar for it, which is this right here, I created a specific like UI for this. Now we actually need to, you know, start creating the input management and all that. And for that, we will create a new script inside the server script service. Oh, actually, we already have it, which is this script right here, which is player added, removed, and died. And actually, I don't think we'll have to do it. So in replicated storage, we're actually going to create a new folder, and we're gonna name this character values, right? And this is essentially going to be a folder that will be, wait, no, let's just name it values. And actually, let's just name this car values. And this is going to be a folder that's going to be inside each and every single character of our game. And the idea is that we're going to duplicate this character value each time a new player joins, and we're going to put it inside their character. So inside this folder, we're going to have a folder named equipped spells. There we go, equipped spells. And inside this, hold on, let me make this a little bit bigger. And inside this, we're gonna have string values, right, with the names of every single spell. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And yeah, there we go. So these are going to represent the equipped spells, meaning this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And each time we press a specific key, the script will check this folder to see what spells the player has equipped. And actually, we should actually name this player values. It'd be easier to find like that. So we have player values, and yes, we have equipped spells, and we might actually have to make another folder for, you know, future purposes called owned spells. I think that'll do for now. Now, essentially, we go to the player added and removed thingy, and each time a player joins after it deals with the character, we're gonna add the player values folder. So okay, what I've done here is I've gotten the player values folder, I cloned it, and I put it inside the parent, meaning this whole folder over here, and then I set the first equipped spell to Ether Blast, and essentially that's going to be the first spell that everybody's going to join with. Also, another thing that we might want to do is add into the own spells the Ether Blast spell. So how you do that is by doing the following. Let me speed this part up. And essentially by doing this, you create a new instance, which is going to be a bool value. It can be whatever really, but I just like to use bool values, and you put that inside the own spells folder, and you just rename that instance to Etherblast. And if we go now and hold on, wait, no, actually no, I actually have to do something else. So essentially we added it, and we added it into like the equipped spells folder and also the own spells folder, but we didn't make it so it actually updates in the actual hotbar that we have right here. So we're gonna do that right now. So we're gonna go to, I'll make the script and then I'll explain what I did. Alright, so essentially this is going to be the base of the code for the input manager. As you can see now, I can detect if the player pressed 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And those are going to be the keys that you're going to use to, you know, select the spells that you want to use when, or the spells that you want to cast. And another thing that we actually have to make is we have to go over here and create a folder and name that events. And inside there, we're going to add a remote event called select spell. And that's gonna be the event that's going to fire when we press any one of these keys. And actually in the future, I actually have to convert these things into like text buttons so that, you know, mobile players can actually play the game as well. I'll do that once I'm done with this video. I won't show it in screen, but I'll do that, don't worry. And okay, so we have input the key code. Okay, so first we gotta get also like the event that we just created, but we gotta get the replicated storage as well, and there we have it. And then you just gotta fire it. But the important thing that I actually need to address here is that when you fire the event, right, select spell, when you fire the event, fire server, this is a remote event, so it will fire to the server from the client. When you fire, you actually need to tell the server which key was it that it was pressed, because the server won't know this. The only thing the server will know is what player pretty much sent the signal of the event, but it won't know anything else. So you have to specify what key was pressed, and I'm going to put it inside a string because that's going to make it easier when we're actually trying to look for the actual skill inside the player value folder, right? We can just tell it to find it by setting it to the name, right? So now you just copy and paste this, just put it inside each and every single one of these things, and now we're pretty much done here. There are going to be other things that will affect this, but for now this is all that we need, because all we want to get to do is just make the spell and cast it. In the future, you're gonna have to have a way to detect if the player is actually able to cast it, meaning if the player is, for example, like frozen, or if he's ragdolled, then you wouldn't want him to cast that. But you can actually do that in a server script as well. Actually, it's better if you do it in a server script, if I'm being completely. But essentially, now that that's done, you have to create another. Yo, why am I saying you? I'm talking as if this is a tutorial when it's actually more of a devlog, right? But essentially, just go to server storage. No, not server storage, server script service, and you create another script here, and you're gonna name this script cast spell. And yeah, now inside this script, this is the script that's going to receive the remote event from the local, and it's going to actually fire the specific spell that we want to cast, right? So I'll make that script and then I'll explain what I'm doing or what happened. It turned out to be a lot easier than I was actually expecting it to be. It's less than 20 line of codes, but essentially I forgot to do something as well. So wait, hold on, let me actually organize my scripts. Let me put this over here. And okay, so pretty much like this part is going to be the part that actually selects the spell, but in order for us to do that, we actually need to add another value inside the player values, and we need to add a string value, and we need to call that selected spell. So you call that selected spell, and this essentially is going to change depending on which spell the player selects, and that's what the script will use to know what spell is selected when you actually try to cast any spell when you click. So all you gotta do now, actually let me just do that real quick, and once I'm done I'll explain this little part of the script real quick. Okay, so essentially what this script does is first we get the variables that we're going to be needing right here. So we have the modules folder, which is this one right here, because we're going to need it to, you know, cast the actual spell later. We need the spells module. We need the events folder, because we need to be able to detect when the player, you know, actually selects a spell. And we actually need the actual event that we're dealing with, which is the select spell. So I put that inside a variable as well. And of course I got the replicated storage as a whole. What happens inside the actual event is that, so first of all, I get the player values folder that's going to be inside the player, right? Because remember, the first argument here, each time you get a remote event, the first argument is always the player when it's from client to server. And then the second argument would be the one that we have right here, the one that we sent, which is the actual key that we press. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And once we have this over here, right, we also get the equipped spells folder, which is this one right here, which contains, you know, all the hotkeys of the player. And we also get the selected spell value, which is this right here, which is going to pretty much indicate what spell the player is selecting right now. So once that's done, I got the corresponding spell, and the way I did that was by, you know, getting from the equipped spells folder the key that was pressed that we passed in the second argument of this event, and I just put that like as a find first child, and I just said the hotkey name, and I also got the value of it, because these are value instances. You don't get the actual value itself. So I got the value of that, and then I made sure that the selected spell, the value of selected spell, like the value property, was equal to this variable right here, which contains the name of the spell that we're dealing with. And if we go ahead and test this, you're gonna see what I mean. So we're here, and if you go to players and you go to I am Ludius, you have the player values folder, you have the equipped spells, and you also have the own spell. So the only spell that I own is the default one, because I haven't added any other spells. But if you see, 1 here is equal to Ether Blast, right? And the selected spell here is like the value of that instance is equal to 0. But if I press 1, then the value of this instance then changes to Ether Blast, because that's what the first selected, or the first spell in the hotbar, is equal to. So now that we know, or we have a way to select the spell that we want to cast, then we actually need to have a way to actually cast the spell. And the way we do that is going to spell manager, and we're gonna add another event actually in the events folder. So we're gonna add another remote event, and we're gonna name this cast spell. And essentially we also have to add it in the input manager, but since we're gonna be dealing with click, then we're gonna have to deal with the mouse now. Casting spell, we're gonna name this other section, and this one is going to be selecting spell. Okay, so in the casting spell section, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get the mouse from the player essentially. So you're gonna do local mouse is equal to local player. Oh, I don't have the player, hold on, let me just get the player up here real quick. Local player get mouse, and now you have the mouse of the player. And now you do mouse dot button 1 down connect function. Damn, bro, these annoying ass cars, bro, they always be noisy as hell. And in here, just gonna fires wait, no, events, wait for child. First you're gonna find the cast spell event, and then you're gonna fire that to the server, and that's it. Each time you press click, then it will fire this cast spell to the server, which is going to be received in the same script that we made before. Okay, so this is for selecting the spell, select spell, and this is for cast spell. So we go and we create here another variable with the cast spell, and we go cast spell on server event connect function. Okay, so now that we have the player, we also need to get the character, and now we also need to get like the selected spell. So the way we get the selected spell is we get the player values folder, right? And then you get the selected spell. And this next section over here is going to, it might get a little bit confusing, but essentially what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna loop through the spells module, trying to find the corresponding spell function depending on the name of the actual like spell inside the spells module, and we're gonna know what that is, like the actual name of the spell, because we have the selected spell right here, right? And also another important thing that we're actually gonna have to do is that we have to make the selected spell equal to nil once the spell is casted. And now we have to actually get into the building of the actual spell itself that we were trying to make, which is the Ether Blast, right? And I'll just have to speed this part up because it's gonna get kinda long. Alright, so essentially what's happening on here, as I said before, is going to search for the spell array in the spells module, and if it finds it, because this has like a name element, if it finds it, then it will play this function right here. The function is not complete yet because I actually need to make this spell with the VFX and the hitbox and everything right now, but essentially you should know that it's going to search for the name using this element right here, and then it's going to play this function right here if it finds it. I also added cooldown elements and mana cost elements. So essentially players are not going to have like infinite amounts of mana, and they're not going to be able to spam this, right? So that's what you want to add these two things right here, because otherwise players are just going to be spamming abilities with no actual tactic whatsoever, right? And yeah, so as you can see here, I got the humanoid because I passed the character in the function, right? Here I passed the character to that function. That's why we got the character over here, so we can pass it to this function right here. So if it finds the corresponding, you know, spell, then it's going to get the spellcast function. It's going to pretty much cast that function, and I passed the character to that function. And here we have the character, we got the humanoid. If it finds the humanoid, then it's going to pretty much load the default cast animation track. It's going to play it. It's going to wait until the player is halfway through, and then it's going to actually like shoot the projectile. But also another thing I forgot to add right here is that we probably want to add some sort of like light or effect. Start light effect or cast. We'll probably want to add like some sort of light effect to the wand, so it actually looks a little bit cooler, and also players know when the other person is about to cast. And essentially what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna make all the VFX, and for that we're gonna go to another place. So we're on another base plate over here, and here I have a bunch of decals and free VFX over here that I can use to take inspiration and to create the VFX that I want. And I'm just going to start experimenting with different VFX here until I get the result that I want for the actual projectile, and as well for the casting VFX for the one. They're probably gonna use something like this. So I'll see in a bit. I'm just gonna spit this part out, or probably not even spit this part out. Yeah, I'm gonna spit this part out. Be right back. Okay, I think this can be the first spell for the default spell, right? Like, I mean, the first effect for the default spell, right? And yeah, I think it looks decent, right? Watch how it moves. I think it looks nice. Might just use that. I pretty much just took two free ones and blended them together. Didn't do much, but it works, right? Let me just move this a little bit up. I think it looks pretty decent, right? So we're just gonna keep that right there. And actually we're gonna name this spell 1 VFX. And I'll just... What is this? Is this an attachment? Yeah, it's an attachment. I didn't know you could do that, but I guess it makes sense. But essentially I'll just shrink this. No, I won't shrink it. I just leave it like that. And then we'll make the thing that the wand will actually like display when it's about to shoot that thing. Okay, so this is the VFX that the wand is going to have. And this is the VFX that the wand is actually going to shoot for that VFX, okay? Publish this. I'll take this to VFX. I'll delete this and I'll paste it over here, right? They are. We're going to put them inside the VFX folder. But essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to take the wand, because we actually need to modify the wand for this to actually work properly. I'm going to take the wand, And we're actually gonna have to add a VFX part to the wand. That way the script will know where the VFX has to play when we are about to cast a spell. So we move this and we put this at the tip of the wand. Pause. There we go. Yeah, I need to modify the... Let's put the 0.01 and see if that works. Yeah, that's more like it. So now that we have that there, we actually named that to wand cast VFX, and we'll put that inside the wand, and then we have to weld it to the handle, and now we should be good. Oh wait, we actually have to make this, we'll have to unanchor this. We actually have to make that the can collide option is also false, and we actually have to make sure that it's also maskless, and last but not least, the transparency. Same thing for the actual one. So we have the can collide, we want to turn that off, and we want to make sure that that's maskless, and there we go. Now we're good. So we publish this to Roblox. We have the one cast VFX part. Actually, let's just name it like cast VFX part, and yeah, now we're good. Yeah, we're good now. So we put this back where it was, which is in once, and pretty much all I gotta do now is just script the VFX into the wand in the spells thing, which I'll do, and I'll speed up.